even though we started with nothing. We didn't have a couch, we didn't have a chair, our little black and white TV was sitting on a milk crate. But there was fun in that, and there was joy in that, because every little piece of furniture we got was like, it's ours. It's like a milestone almost, you know? And so I just wanted him to be present. Come home from work, let's have dinner together. Let's look at the ad and look at the baby stuff. What do we want to buy? Let's go shopping together. We'll go to movies together. I really wanted to just do stuff together. I received a message in my email account saying our account had been shut off because he had said some things to a girl and she had reported him. And I confronted him with that, and he denied it. And then a little while later, I started receiving pornographic material in the mail. And I was like, they have our address. How do they have our address? It was little things like that that happened off and on for probably the first 10 to 13 years of our marriage. I buried it. I didn't want to face it. And so even though I had the evidence in front of me, I didn't want to believe that it was true. If it was just a one-time or a little bit of a problem. And so I would hide it myself. Or he would say, oh, it was just the one time, and I would believe him willingly because I didn't want to believe there was a bigger or deeper problem. I just felt like there was this deep-seated toxicity, like something, like there was an infection going on in our marriage, and I was so ashamed of it that I didn't want to acknowledge it. It's like if you let an infection go in your leg for so long, you're ashamed to go to the doctor because you're ashamed to show how bad it got. I didn't want anybody to know how bad our marriage really was. There was this ideal that I wanted to present to the world, that we have this perfect marriage, you know, and I had to put up this face of perfection. There came a point where I had decided after a few days after the disclosure that I had to have a separation. Even if it was just to give myself time. Like I had to be separate from him. I couldn't have him in my face like all the time. And so I did. I asked him to leave, and he was gone for I think 12 days. But I felt free all of a sudden. I felt free of the heaviness. I felt free of his problems and his shame. And I was able to just focus on me. And I felt secure in the fact that I had set this boundary. I wish I had known that I wasn't the only one. I think with this, the stigma and the stereotype that surrounds sexual addiction for men and women, and the absolute paralyzing fear that is felt of what other people are going to say and think, or repercussions that are going to happen because of it, that weren't even afraid to search for resources out there. I decided to go to my church leader and to seek help there. And he introduced me to a recovery program. I wasn't the only one. All of a sudden, other beautiful women in that room struggling with the exact same thing that I struggled with, and it was just so beautiful. All I wanted to do was share it with my husband. Look what I found. It's so amazing. And all he did is sit on his computer and look at the computer. Didn't really even acknowledge my presence as tears streamed down my face, trying to share this beautiful thing that I had found. And at that very moment, I decided I needed to cut my emotions from him. I needed to detach from him. I can only fix and change myself. And so I did. I focused on that. Eventually, after a few months, he noticed the change in me. That's when the beautiful thing happened. He finally came out to me about his own struggle. And it was this first moment of honesty. Like I had this defining moment for myself where the thoughts ran through my head, okay, you can attack him for this, or this is the moment where you can support him. And so I did that. I was like, okay, we can work this together. We can do this. And we just started working the program together. And everything was good. Like we were going to our church leader, we were working this program, we were talking about recovery and all of these principles we were learning. We were finally reached this new level of honesty that we had never experienced in our marriage. And there's the friendship and the communication that I had wanted from the very beginning. There it was, right there. I'm coming into this knowledge of it's okay for me to feel these feelings of betrayal. It's okay for me to feel anger. It's okay for me to feel sadness. It's okay for me to feel hurt. And those are feelings that I still actually do struggle with validating them, but they're feelings prior to that I hadn't even considered validating, because I'm always the strong one. That's how it's been throughout my whole life. And so for me to tap into vulnerability and allow myself to be a puddle on the floor and show that sadness and shed those tears was really, really difficult for me. But as miracles happen, Addo Recovery contacted me right then, and they were offering this 6-week course. And that very first day, when we learned about post-traumatic stress disorder and just trauma therapy, that this is an actual trauma that I went through, like a car accident, once I was able to tap into that fact, I was like, okay, there's hope for this. Through this whole thing, the most difficult part was the dishonesty. It wasn't about the acting out in his sexual addiction. It was about the absolute dishonesty. I couldn't believe any word that came out of his mouth. And that to me is, I can't live like that. I can't live like that. And even to this day, he'll say something to me and just randomly, oh, I forgot to tell you. And my thought is, what else are you forgetting to tell me? What else are you leaving out? His honesty is not transparent. He is not transparent. And that was the hardest thing through all of it, is the level of dishonesty. I've discovered my own value too. Like, I am valuable enough to expect honesty from other people. I can love myself enough to expect other people to be honest with me. There is so much strength in numbers. Just having other people that have walked the same path that I am walking. They're all climbing the same mountain, but they've all taken different paths and done different things to achieve their own recovery. And I can pick and choose from each of their experiences and say, that'll work for me, or I don't think that'll work for me. And then I can forge my own path. And then the beautiful thing happens is someone will come behind me and my path will become a resource to them as well. I feel really good. I still struggle a little bit of finding my footing, but now what's awesome is I know where to find it. I have my support system in place. This gift of value in myself, learning to love myself and becoming okay with myself, is something that I want other women to have. There is hope, there's light, you can step into it. And there's so many women struggling in the shadows right now, in corners, all alone, still thinking that they're all by themselves. And so if I can be the person to just extend my hand and say, come with me, I know where the light is, then I want to be that person. And that's such a tiny little thing to be able to do, to provide hope for somebody. I mean, that's a life. I feel like I'm in this awesome movement right now where people are just talking about stuff now that hasn't been talked about in the past. People are opening up and talking about these deep personal things that have just been so taboo in society. And now it's as more people talk about it, it's they're all standing in a lit room and they all look like this, with their eyes closed, thinking they're the only ones. And if they would just open their eyes, they would see that there's so many people standing in the exact same room. All you have to do is open your eyes and see your neighbor and link hands and link arms and join this movement of finding unity in people who struggle with the same thing that you do. And once you find that, then you found family and you found home.